Welcome, Stephen Watson here at Someday Farm in Killingworth, Connecticut, with our next episode of Someday Farm's Nèijiāquán Challenge. So, of course, we can do this for any art that we're practiced in that would fit under the umbrella term Nèijiāquán, even if it's not exactly Nèijiāquán, something that would suit it. For example, a Hatha yoga practice would fit, or Aikido might fit. I usually think in terms of Yichuan, Zhanshuang, Xingyichuan, Dongbeichuan, perhaps, certainly Tai Chi Chuan, Baguozhang. And this is not a how-to, and it's not a discussion or lecture on philosophy. It's a challenge for your practice. Particularly, it might be helpful if you're not feeling very challenged lately in your own practice or by your own teacher or by your own classmates. Sometimes you may find yourself to be a more advanced student in a class, and the focus of the class has been on helping the more novice folks maybe catch up, and you want to still do your practice and come to class, but can you find a challenge that won't disturb everybody else? So here's an idea for today. I guess since I started facing this way, I'll kind of be thinking in terms of Baguozhang today, just in terms of a demo. But of course, for you, you could be doing this with a Yichuan practice or Tai Chi Chuan practice or what have you. So the practice here is going to be going through your Daolu, your form, and coming to a movement that is named, or probably a picture of it is in your notebook or your book or books, or and when we get to that movement that's named, the practice is going to be to create a externally static posture of that named movement, which, here might be this. That would be a good idea. It might also be lean on horse to ask the way here. And it might also be that I go through a few of the movements, and on occasion, that's where I make my pause. So we don't have to pause with every movement, but it's certainly a really nice practice to do it with. So I might go through a Tai Chi Chuan form, slower than this just for demo. I'm kind of speeding up so it's not boring you. And then I'll get to a particular move and I'll make that an externally static posture. And I'll talk about what we're doing when we do that. So here, I'll just complete a circle. So I get a little bit movement here and come back to face the camera. And for me, the way I learned it, this is, step one of this next movement. And so I rest in this. And what I want to do initially is kind of correct my practice of it, because I'm paused here. I have an opportunity to correct it. Maybe I'll stay here for a few breaths. I'd recommend maybe at least 3 breath cycles. But maybe I want to do this with an external measure and have a clock and decide I'm going to stay here for 90 seconds or 20 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever. I find that 3 breath cycles is a nice way to start. Maybe becomes a minimum as I get my practice. So maybe I'm correcting myself in terms of my attention or my positioning or structure or qualities of those structures. Maybe I'm correcting my intention and my breathing. So I may be correcting the mind, the body, the breath, the heart. So I offer myself to the practice a little bit rather than just get there with all the errors that I happen to bring today and then add to my practice with the challenge. I'm going to get to that and then give myself about a third of my whole practice time to correct it. Knowing, of course, that if my teacher showed up, there would be plenty more that would come under correction. But I know that I've sincerely attended to it here. I didn't just lock in what I got. I took some time to soften some tissues, regulate the breathing, focus the mind, correct the stance, change the positioning to something closer to what I remember having been taught. So step two, first we correct. Step two is we reconsider. And the particular reconsidering that I want to do as our challenge this episode is to reconsider the name of the move. So what is this move named? What have I learned about it? What have I always thought when I've heard that name, if anything? What got passed down to me? And the practice here is to reconsider that. What else might it mean? So I learned this as close the door, push the moon. So maybe I'm thinking, what kind of door? I know in China they have these moon gates. Maybe it's the fact that it's a moon and a door is the same thing. Am I closing the door from the inside or the outside? Am I closing it because I've already welcomed something in? Am I closing it to keep something out? How easily does the door close? Is it a closing, a push closed door or a pull closed door? As this whole technique, close the door, push the moon, I think of the second half as push the moon. So I'm kind of focused on close the moon portion. You might be doing the whole thing. So the practice here is not just to rest in my usual considerations of the move based on the name. Sometimes we lock into just the one thing that our teacher told us or the one thing that we have an affinity for, which might happen to be right. It's also much more likely to not be entirely right, given that the names come from different languages, from different eras, from different people, and it's a game of telephone through history. We're very unlikely to have received it very accurately. So this isn't about seeking the correct answer. It's about reconsidering what we're sure of. And where we don't particularly pay attention, we're meeting the movement in its name in a manner which is perhaps more respectful than just saying, yeah, I know the name of the move, but I do it, and I always think of blasting the guy in the chest, and that's what it's for. So I kind of start with repairing the movement, then I reconsider the movement in the second third of my practice, both in stillness, relative physical stillness. And for me, it's really just a bunch of questions. Why is it a door, not a window? Is it the only door to a building? Is it an interior door, or is it a door from inside to outside? Is it a temporary door, permanent door? Does the window let the moon in anyway with a window? Is it a solid door? Is it insulated? Is it creaky? The older I get, the more creaky that door is. And then the last third of the practice is to recommit to the practice, having kind of repaired it, but maybe settled on some new, at least temporary answers for what it means, what the meaning means, how the meaning has reached you today. Not permanent scholarly proclamation of the official translation or intent or meaning, but how I came to it today, what was revealed to me today or intuited or posited, and then I'm going to recommit to the move as though that's the answer to see if it changes any of the qualities. So maybe this entire thing is 9 breath cycles, 3 as I repair, 3 as I reconsider, and then 3 as I recommit. But maybe I hold a minute and a half for each, and I have a 4.5 minute practice. Maybe I hold each element for 4 or 5 minutes, and I have a 12 to 15 minute practice standing in place. And then when that's over, maybe I step in to the next movements. And maybe I do that practice for each movement. So I maybe, I just switched to Tai Chi here for some reason. I stop here, I repair, I reconsider, I recommit over some period of time. And then I go into my next movement and I repair, then reconsider, then recommit. And I go into my next movement and I kind of pause throughout. Maybe I pause every other movement, every once in a while when a movement strikes my fancy, or a movement that really, really is asking me to spend a lot of challenging time in that one position, depending on what I like. So I think I made a note or two about this. I'm just coming out of the glare of the sun, and just in case that note has something I wanted to make sure I got across. Yeah, so I wrote uh, like we correct, we contemplate, and we commit. Or today, to the camera, I said repair, reconsider, and recommit. But I typed correct, contemplate, commit, same idea. And one of the ideas that, I get to broaden my insight rather than just deepen them. So often we try and deepen our insights because we have a clear idea of what something is and we're just trying to penetrate that more. But if that wasn't exactly what was meant by that name, I'm really not going to find the answer, even though I've gotten deeper, maybe rabbit hole style. And so this allows me to broaden it and say, oh, I've always thought moon, but maybe it's more moonlight, right? Uh, Maybe it was translated as Keelin, but maybe it's more unicorn. Maybe it's a different idea. Maybe it's a rock rather than just a bird. Maybe it's a Thai bird, and just kind of understanding that our initial entry into it in terms of our mind may have missed the mark. It's likely to have missed the mark somewhat, and so if we allow ourselves at least occasionally the opportunity to broaden the possibilities and then consider those and then work on a practice that presumes that that's a correct consideration just for the time being, just for the week, just for today, just for this practice, that can really um, open us up as practitioners and students of the arts. So we're asking you to reflect on and reconsider the names as they've come to us. This isn't about trying to figure out what things really mean, what they really were intended, but it's really just to unnarrow my mental relationship or emotional relationship to the names as I've understood them. So that's your challenge for this session. Please, obviously, subscribe, share, like, comment, and certainly in the comments it would help. What would you do as a challenge? Give me your recommendations and suggestions. What challenges have worked for you? Anyway, I'm Steve Watson here at Someday Farm. Thank you all very much.